You probably saw the headlines, right? The OM token from Mantra blockchain just boom, down 90%.
Oh, yeah. Billions in market cap. Just gone.
Yeah, vanished. It definitely caught my eye. So that's what we're digging into today.
Exactly. We want to unpack what actually happened with this OM token collapse. We're going to look at the info out there, especially, what the co-founder, JP Mullen, said.
Right. We have that interview he did with the Street Crypto, and also this new note we found, which kind of asks the blunt question.
Was it a scam?
Yeah. Was it a scam? So that's our mission today. Dive deep, try to understand the forces behind this OM implosion.
And it's worth remembering, Mantra's whole pitch, they were big on real-world assets, RWAs.
A lot of buzz around that.
Huge buzz, which makes this crash, this sudden drop, kind of surprising,
Yeah.
A real reminder that even promising projects can hit serious walls.
Okay, so let's start with Mullen. His explanation. He told the Street it was, quote, massive forced liquidations in a low liquidity environment on a Sunday night.
He even said he was asleep when it started.
Asleep. Wow. Okay, so what's the picture he's painting there?
Well, it sounds like he's pointing to an external shock, a domino effect maybe,
Right.
Automated selling hitting a market where there just weren't enough buyers. Sunday night, low liquidity. It fits, kind of.
Then
Crucially, he insists it wasn't him, wasn't the team, wasn't their investors doing some kind of insider sell-off that kicked it all off. That's his line.
Okay. He also made a point about using clean, fresh, unmarked wallets and labeling them.
Yeah, on Etherscan.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to show transparency, I guess.
Yeah.
That they weren't secretly dumping tokens.
Now, here's where it gets a bit tricky, right? The token situation. They had the old ERC20 tokens on Ethereum.
Right, from years back.
And then the new native OM tokens on their own layer of one blockchain launched, what, the year before this?
That dual setup. That's definitely important.
What's the significance?
Well, think about it. Two versions of the same token, essentially. It can cause confusion. And, as we'll see, it complicated things when they tried to merge them. Like having two different share classes trading differently needs careful handling.
Okay. And they were working with market makers to manage trading on exchanges, mostly offshore ones.
Yep, pretty standard stuff in crypto. To provide liquidity, make sure there are buyers and sellers. Some of these market makers were apparently investors too.
But how does that tie in? The market makers?
Well, market makers are meant to stabilize things. But their power depends on how much capital they actually have in play. And this is interesting. Right after the crash, Binance spoke up.
Binance. The exchange. What did they say?
They clarified they'd actually been worried about Mantra's token supply for a while. Since January, apparently. They had a pop-up warning on the OM trading page.
A warning? About what specifically?
About significant changes to its tokenomics, increasing its supply. That's pretty direct.
Whoa. Okay, that definitely adds another layer. So this brings us smack into the tokenomics issue. The supply.
Exactly. There was this DAO vote back in February, the year before. Community vote.
Right. And it approved merging the old ERC20 tokens with the new Layer 1 tokens.
And the effect was it basically doubled the total supply of OM tokens.
Doubled the supply. Okay, that sounds significant. How did that merge work?
It was a one-for-one burn mechanism. You send your old ERC20s to a burn address, you get the same number of new L1 OM tokens. They had this mirror bucket thing for security too. Mullen said over 100 million tokens had already been bridged that way.
So the supply is doubling. What's the potential impact there?
Well, basic economics, right? If supply doubles and demand doesn't keep pace, or if the market isn't ready to absorb it, that puts downward pressure on the price, especially, if liquidity is thin.
And someone actually flagged this beforehand, an analyst?
Yeah, Ishmael Assad. Just days before the crash, he was posting on X, raising concerns about this doubling. Pointed out only about 50% was circulating.
And he suspected.
He openly questioned if insiders might be setting up an exit strategy for when more tokens unlocked. Skeptical, you could say.
So you have these warnings beforehand. But what was Mullen's response to that?
He defended the DAO vote. Said, look, the community voted unanimously for this. It was needed for the new chain, and it was public knowledge for months. The market knew, basically.
Two very different takes on whether the market was truly aware or had priced it in.
Exactly. A real disconnect there.
Okay, let's shift back to liquidity and the market makers. Mullen denied they were artificially pumping the price, right?
Yeah, he was very clear on that. No manipulation with their market-making partners, he said.
Which is important to state.
Definitely. Allegations of pumping are serious. But even without manipulation, Mullen did kind of concede something.
What was that?
He admitted the market makers' positions, They probably weren't deep enough, not enough capital there to handle that massive wave of forced selling on that Sunday night.
So even legitimate market making might not have been enough. A vulnerability.
Precisely. If the capital cushion isn't big enough for a crisis, it can actually make the crash worse. Market depth matters a lot.
Which leads us right back to that question from the new note. Was it a scam?
The million-dollar question.
Mm.
Or, I guess, the billion-dollar question in this case.
So Mullen denies it strongly. No negligence, no malicious intent, just a market event. Liquidations, low liquidity. That's his story.
Right. And he says he feels responsible to the community, even if he doesn't think he did anything wrong, per se. But you have to weigh that against everything else, don't you? The doubled supply, Assad's warnings beforehand, the questions about whether market makers were really prepared, the Binance warning.
It paints a complicated picture.
It really does. We don't have, like, a smoking gun in these sources saying scam, but there are definitely red flags, lots of unanswered questions.
And then there's that comment from Assad after the crash. He said Montreux was egregiously overvalued.
And hadn't actually tokenized many real-world assets yet, despite being seen as a leader in RWA.
So maybe the hype just got way ahead of the reality.
That's a classic crypto story, isn't it? Narrative versus fundamentals. The valuation soaring based on potential, not necessarily on what's actually been delivered yet. It's a good reminder to, look under the hood.
And it seems like regulators are noticing these patterns too. You mentioned the SEC.
Yeah, they've put out new guidance, focusing on disclosures, things like changes in token supply, relationships with market makers, demanding more transparency.
Which you'd think would help investors, right? Give people a clearer view.
Absolutely. If you know how much supply is really out there circulating and you understand the deals with market makers, you can make much more informed choices. Maybe avoid some of these situations where sudden supply shocks or thin liquidity cause chaos.
So what about the future for Mantra? Did Mullen say anything?
He claims the business itself is solvent. More than solvent, I think he said. And apparently, there's even some institutional interest in backing a buyback and burn program for the OM token.
A buyback to support the price.
Potentially, yeah. Could help stabilize things, return some value, but...
Doesn't erase the losses.
Exactly. Yeah. Huge losses already happened. So it's maybe a path forward, a sign they're trying to recover, but it's definitely an uncertain road.
Okay, so let's try and pull this together. The OM collapse. Sounds like a perfect storm.
Pretty much. You had the immediate trigger. Those massive forced liquidations hitting when nobody was really trading.
Low liquidity. Sunday night.
Right. But that was amplified, likely, by these underlying concerns, the double token supply from that merge.
And the lack of clarity, maybe, around market makers and whether they could actually handle a shock like that. Transparency issues.
Yep. And while Mullen and the team deny anything shady, the whole thing just screams risk, doesn't it? Highlights the complexities in crypto, tokenomics, circulating supply, market maker games. It's a lot to track.
You really need to understand that stuff.
Vitally important. And this whole saga just reinforces the need for way more openness in crypto,
Yeah. The fact that regulators are stepping up guidance kind of underlines that. More transparency isn't just good for individuals.
It's probably good for the whole market. Maybe builds more trust, more stability long term.
So the final thought then, maybe, is about balance.
Yeah, I think so. Like this event. What does it really tell us about balancing crypto innovation, which moves super fast, with community decisions like DAO votes, and then this ever-present risk of sudden instability?
And tied to that, is the transparency we have now actually enough? Enough for people to make genuinely informed decisions in this space, especially with things like RWA tokenization just getting started?
That's the big question to ponder, isn't it? Is it enough?